the mass given in the question is actually 100 kg times the gravity, which is, you were told to take it as 10 sine 30. So we will press this in our calculator. It's obvious that sine 30 is half, 0.5. This is already established fact. So 100 times 10 is actually 1000 times 0.5. So the vertical component, or the gravity component that is parallel to the inclined plane, the total force opposition from that angle should be 500 Newton. Then coming to the perpendicular, the horizontal component, we have that. Welcome to Sir Majesty Easy World Science channel. In this video, I will be handling the WAEC 2023 physics objective questions, starting from question number 1 to question number 50. So please, happy watching and endeavor to ask your questions where necessary. I am here to serve you. Please subscribe to this channel if you have not subscribed. Then share and give this video thumbs up. So we are starting with question number 1. The number 1 there says the instrument used to measure relative humidity is the instrument used to measure relative humidity. So we are answering WAEC 2023 physics objective questions. Then question number 1 is asking us for instruments used to measure relative humidity. Option A have it as barometer, B say hydrometer, C says hygrometer, then D says manometer. So how the correct answer to this is C, of course, which is, they are talking about relative humidity, so it's going to be hygrometer. Don't confuse hygrometer with hydrometer. So when we talk about hydrometer, anything that have D is for density. This one is used to measure relative density, while this is also used to measure relative humidity. That's the amount of water vapor in the atmosphere. This is for humidity. So the secret D to D, relative density, is to know is measured using hydrometer, which is actually a glassy, you see there on the screen. I use it to determine concentration. Sometimes if you don't need to waste time, you can use relative densities to know the concentration, but this hygrometer is for relative humidity. So the correct answer to question number 1, as you can see there on the screen, is option C. Then I want to explain option A, barometer, and option D is what I have not explained, which is manometer. These two are actually used for measuring pressure, but barometer is used to measure atmospheric pressure, while manometer measures fluid or liquid pressure, like the pressure of any liquid or gas. But barometer is for atmospheric pressure, to know the pressures above and below sea level. So that's it. Now, question number 2, I'll take each question in detail so that you understand it well. Question number 2 says, which part of the human eye performs the same function as the diaphragm in a lens camera? In a lens camera, the diaphragm controls the opening and closing of the aperture, which allows light, controlling the amount of light getting inside the camera and getting inside the camera actually. So in this case, if you come to human eye, remember that the pinhole camera, or actually the camera, is analogous with human eye. It is the iris that performs the same function with the diaphragm of the lens, of a lens camera. In that case, if you come to biology, the iris is also called the muscular diaphragm of the eye, and the iris controls or regulates the amount of light that enters into the eye. And the iris is also responsible for the color of the eye. So you will know more about this on biology. Remember, I handle you well also in chemistry and biology. So sciences are connected, of course. I don't usually do physics, but I'm handling this one today. So now, in this case, I'm telling you that another name for the iris in biology is the muscular diaphragm. If they tell you what's the muscular diaphragm of the eye, the name is iris. So iris is analogous in function with the diaphragm of the lens camera, in the sense that both controls the amount of light that enters. The diaphragm controls the amount of light that enters into the camera, while the iris controls the amount of light that enters into the eye by controlling the size of the pupil. Remember, the pupil is just the distance, the hole between the surrounded by the iris. In other words, we have the circular and the radial muscle. But let's go to the next question, which is question number 3. This have to do with calculation. It says an electron moves from an energy level of minus 8.6 eV. EV means electron volts. The energy of electrons is measured in electron volts. The electron moves, they say the electron moves from an energy level of minus 8.6 eV to another level of minus 3.5 eV. Determine the frequency of the absorbed radiation. In this case, I want you to know what we call excitation and promotion. When energy is supplied to an electron, the electron moves from a lower energy level to a higher energy level, which means energy have to be absorbed by the electron for it to change from a lower energy to a higher energy level. But when electron emits energy, atomic spectral line emission, when an electron emits energy, it drops from a higher energy level to a lower energy level, and this is what X-ray is all about. You use a fast-moving electron to dislodge the inner electrons, and when the inner electrons are dislodged, the electrons of higher energy level moves down to occupy the lower one, and thereby emitting that energy, which is down the X-ray. So you should know about emission and absorption. When an atom absorbs energy, the electrons moves from a lower energy level to a higher energy level. But when you remove an energy from a particular electron, it falls down, and falling down means emission, but absorbing. So today we are going to deal with, we have higher and lower energy levels. So the total energy absorbed here is going to, let me clean this. So we are going to question number, it should be question number 3. So question number 3, we have two energy levels, which is minus 8.6, and the other, the initial, this is the initial energy level. Then the other one is minus 3.5, which is the final energy level. So we have to minus the final, we have to minus the initial from the final. So the total energy of the electron, the energy absorbed for the movement, should be total of minus 3.5 minus 8.6, of course, because of minus multiplied by minus will give you plus. So we have minus 3.5 plus 8.6. Minus is plus. So from the calculator department, what I have here is it said minus 3.5 plus 8.6. This is giving us a minus, okay, minus by minus. Let me take the question again. Okay, my calculator is giving me an error there. 3.5, okay, we'll put minus plus 8.6. I can equally do this without calculator, so this should be 5.1. 5.1 is the energy absorbed. Then 1 electron volt is equivalent to, is given in the question, I believe, yeah. 1 EV is given in the question as 1 EV, 1 electron volt, is equivalent to 1.6 times 10 raised to the power minus 19, of course, joules. So let us see the energy now. In that case, we have gotten 5.1 automatically. If 1 is represented by 1.6 times 10 raised to the power minus 19, I guess it's visible, yeah. What will 5.1 give? Automatically we multiply this by this. The raised to the power will remain the same. So we are going to see 5.1 times 1.6. If I'm correct, 5.1 times 1.6, 5.1 times 1.6 will give us 8.16. So we have 8.16 times 10 raised to power minus 19 EV in total. And then the question is asking us to calculate the frequency of the radiation absorbed. So we are going to bring a formula that connects energy and frequency. And that is energy, this is the total energy. Energy is equal to Planck's constant times frequency. So that means in this, we are going to make frequency the subject of the formula such that frequency should now be energy divided by Planck's constant. Our energy is already 8.16 times 10, while Planck's constant has been given is already a known constant, which is 6.6 times 10 to the power minus 34. So the frequency of the radiation absorbed is automatically 8.16 times 10 raised to the power minus 19 divided by the Planck's constant, which is 6.6 times 10 raised to the power minus 34. So in this case, because we are getting it right, yeah, of course, because we are calculating for frequency. So in this case, you just need to, because it's indices, you divide this 8.16 divided by 6.6. 8.16 divided by 6.6 will give you 1.36. So permit me to continue somewhere here. We have 1.236. Then for us to get this, according to law of indices, since this is division, it's going to be minus. So we are going to see 10 raised to the power minus 19 minus 34, which automatically means 10 raised to the power minus 19 plus 34. That gives us 10 raised to the power 15. So that means this should be times 10 raised to the power 15. This should be our final answer, and that is option A. So A is the correct answer to question number 3. So that's it for that. We now go to question number 4. Question number 4 says another calculation. These calculations, okay, let me just be trying. I can remember. A ball of mass 0.8 kg is dropped from a height h just before hitting the ground. Its velocity is 5.0 meters per second. Determine h. They give us gravity. Acceleration due to gravity should be 10 meters per second squared. So in that case, we are going to use one of the laws of motion, equations of motions. We have the other one, they have AT square, we have the V square. I think here is dealing with acceleration due to gravity. It said hitting the ground. Therefore, the one we should apply here, can apply other means, but the one I'm going to use here, where is my cleaner? I lost that. We're going to question number 4. Okay, question number 4. We are going to apply the formula V square equal to U square minus 2G plus 2GH, sorry. In this case, we have that V is our final velocity, while U is our initial velocity. Then G is always given gravity, acceleration due to gravity, which is already 10 meters per second square. Then h is what we are calculating for, looking at, because that's what they told us to determine. Okay, so substituting our values, since they said the mass was dropped from a height, the height is unknown, which is the initial, and hits the ground, its velocity, that's the final velocity, is 5. So we're going to have 5 square, because that's the final velocity, is equal to 0 square, because the initial is going to be 0, plus 2 times 10 times h. Making h the subject of the formula, we have that we divide both sides by h. Divide here by, of course, we are going to divide both sides by, not by h, by everything around h that is not h. That should be 0 square is 0 plus 2 times 10 is 20 Then you divide the same thing with here. That means cancel out, such that h is equal to 5 square is automatically 25. 25 divided by 20. From our calculator department, this should give us 1 point something, 1.2, it should be 1.25 or 1.5, but let me confirm. Okay, 20 divided by, is that 20 divided by, sorry, 25 divided by 20 is 1.25. 1.25. Let's check if we have that in the option. If we don't have, okay, not only the solving is correct. The answer is A. So question number 4 is A. Then question number 5 says, which of the following statements about latent heat are correct? Latent heat. First of all, what is latent heat? Sometimes students might find this difficult. Latent means hidden. Yeah, latent heat is actually the heat required or the heat absorbed or released when there is a change of state without corresponding increase in temperature. This is the grammar, but the application is this. If you're heating a liquid, before that liquid eventually starts vaporizing, turning to gas, there will be a stage where you will be heating and there will be no considerable rise in the thermometer you inserted into that liquid. And at that time, the heat being absorbed is known as the latent heat. So latent heat must be absorbed for a liquid to change to gas. Whenever the entropy is increasing, latent heat will be what? Absorbed. But a decrease in entropy will lead to liberation of latent heat, meaning disorderliness. If you move from solid liquid to gas, for you to change solid to liquid, you have to absorb that latent heat to increase the kinetic energy. But for you to move from liquid to gas, absorption. Solid to liquid, absorption. But gas to liquid, it has to be released. Latent heat has to be released. Then liquid to solid, it has to be released. So take it that way. The hidden heat, the latent heat, is just the heat required to cause a change of state without a corresponding change in the temperature or a corresponding increase or decrease in the thermometer reading. Simple. So let us see their statements. They say which one they say about latent heat are correct. So when ice melts, latent heat is absorbed. Ice melting. Remember what I said. Melting means changing from solid to liquid. So latent heat is absorbed. That is a very correct statement. Then II says when water freezes, latent heat is given off. There is decrease in entropy. When water freezes, it is changing. Freezing changes liquid to solid. So change of the reverse, just move from solid, liquid, gas. Latent heat in that direction must be absorbed. But if you move from gas, liquid, solid, latent heat must be released for such. So freezing is changing of liquid to solid. So latent heat supposed to be what? Released or given off, which is very correct. So I and II is very correct. III says when water evaporates, evaporation, you are changing from liquid to gas. Increase in entropy, so latent heat have to be absorbed. And they said latent heat is absorbed. Very correct. Then IV says when water vapor condenses, latent heat is absorbed. Condensation is change of gas to liquid, decrease in entropy. So latent heat need to be given off and not absorbed. So IV is the only incorrect statement here. So option A says I and IV only. No. B says I and III. Yes, they are correct, but the I is also correct. C says I and I. Okay, C is very, very correct. Option C, which is says I and III. They are all correct. So the correct answer to question number 5 is C. Okay, remember you are still on with Her Majesty Easy World. Please subscribe and share this video. I cannot do without you. Don't go anywhere except if you subscribe and share. Please, I'm begging of you. I beg you. expand this science community. Check other videos and enjoy the rest of the video.
Next question is, increasing the frequency of a sound wave produces a sound with a higher pitch. So the correct answer to this question is higher pitch. So I must get to mark C there. Then which of the following diagrams correctly represents or correctly illustrates the mode of oscillation of air in a tube for the first overtone? We both know that first overtone is known as the second harmonics. So the first harmonics is drawn something like this for an open tube with the reflected sound wave, but here they not write it like that, so let's just leave it in, let's just write it fully. So the first overtone is something like this. That's double the first harmonics, or you can also call this thing second harmonics. So second harmonics or first overtone. So it's drawn something like this with the reflected waves also here. So our correct answer to this question is B. So in a mass spectrometer, an ion of charge Q and mass M moving in a path of radius R in a field of flux density B has a speed of what? So first of all, in this question, we should look at what equates both speed in the two parts of this question. We both know that speed represents in terms of flux density, charge, and velocity. That's force is equal to QVB. We also know that according to circular motion, force can also be equal to mv squared over r, and obviously the circular motion in this question due to the radius, and it's moving in a path of radius, so it's obviously involved in a circular motion. So we're going to equate both of them together because it's still the same force. The force will still give us the same magnitude. So this will be mv squared over r is equal to qvb. So I need to cancel out 1v from here. So cancelling out 1v from here, it will remain one more v here. So that will be mv over r is equal to qb. So cross multiplying. So that will be mv is equal to bqr. So what I'm going to do to make v the solid of formula, I'm going to divide both sides by m. So v is equal to bqr over m. So our correct answer is C. So the next question we're going to go to is number 9. That's a sound of frequency 512 Hz reaches a listener 100 meters away. If the sound travels in air at SCP, what is its wavelength? So we're going to use the formula, that is speed is equal to frequency multiplied by wavelength. So our speed here was given as 331 meters per second. Our frequency is 512 Hz, so our wavelength can be easy to find. That's equating both of them, that will be 321 is equal to 512 multiplied by our wavelength, which is unknown. So dividing both sides by 512, our wavelength will be given as that will be 0.646 meters. So our correct answer is B. So the next question, look at in the Rutherford scattering experiment, a beam of alpha particles was fired at a thin gold film, and few of the particles were deflected considerably. This shows that the nucleus of an atom is positively charged and is concentrated in a tiny volume, due to the fact that the alpha particles are located, due to the fact that few of the particles were deflected. This shows that the nucleus of the atom is positively charged. This was what Rutherford postulated from his experiments. So the next question we're going to look at is, a charge of 10 coulomb is transferred across a potential difference of 220 volts. Determine the work done. So we know that the work done also known as energy, is equal to QV. So I need to solve for it. Our Q is 10, multiplied by our volt, that's 220. So that will give us 2200 joules. So our correct final answer is 2200 joules, that's D. The next question is, a solenoid is constructed by winding an insulated copper on a long test tube. A constant direct current is passed through the solenoid. Which of the following actions will not increase the strength of the magnetic field of the solenoid? The correct answer to this question should be B, brass rod in the test tube, because the other ones are good conductors of, the other ones are good magnetic substances that can be attracted by a magnet, but brass rod cannot be attracted. So three of them can increase the strength of the magnetic field, but the brass rod cannot increase it. So the next question is, the following statements are advantages of a solid dielectric material between the plates of a capacitor, except that it increases the electrical conduction of the capacitor. Why did I say it? Because insulators naturally do not conduct electricity, so it cannot increase the electrical conduction of the capacitor. Then, which of the following statements about a ferromagnetic material is correct? It attracts non-magnetic material, it has low relative permeability, it repels other magnetic materials, it has a high susceptibility. The correct answer to this question is D, because it has a high susceptibility to attracting material. So the next question here is 15. A ball P is released from a roof. So I'm just going to draw. Let me erase this. So it says a ball P is released from a roof of a building at the same time as another ball Q. So this is the ball Q, and is thrown vertically upward from the base of the building. Which of the following statements is correct? The acceleration of P is greater than that of Q, and both are in the same direction. The acceleration of P is equal to that of Q, and both are in the same direction. The acceleration of P is equal to that of Q, and are in opposite direction. Correct answer to this question should be C, because acceleration due to gravity continues to remain constant whether the object is going up or down. So the acceleration due to gravity is always going to be equal. And as you can see here, both of them are obviously moving in opposite directions. So the only option that agrees with both these terms is C. So let's move on to the next question. So next question is number 16. Says a planet of mass m and radius r has mass m and radius r. If the universal gravitational constant is g, what is the expression for the escape velocity of an object on the planet? So we know that v is equal to the root of 2 gm over r. So when we relate this formula to this question, the only thing about this question is that the square root is just written in indices form, so you can as well write it like this: 2 gm over r raised to power half, based on law of indices. So the answer to this question should be D. The next question is, the specific latent heat of vaporization of lead is 8.7 times 10 to the power 5 joules per kilogram. This means that 8.7 times 10 to the power 5 joules of thermal energy is required to change 1 kilogram of molten lead to vapor at constant temperature and pressure. So that's A, because vaporization involves changing liquid to vapor, so it cannot be solid lead to vapor, and neither can it be a given mass, because we already made specific in the units that is 1 kilogram and specific latent heat. So the correct answer should be A. The next question is, a 100 kg device is pulled up a plane inclined at 30 degrees to the horizontal with a force of 1000 Newton. If the coefficient of friction between the device and the surface is 0.25, determine the total force opposing the friction.
Okay, I hope you're enjoying the classes so far. The solvings are majestic, of course. So let's take a little more detailed in this question number 18. It's all about force, friction, and inclined planes. Okay, principally it should be under inclined planes. Okay, so inclined planes by application are actually used as ramps, that's loading ramps to load and unload goods from ships, plane, truck, and we even have some ramps for ramps for wheelchair that helps people climb even upstairs. That one is not staircase. So an inclined plane should be plain. It shouldn't have any rough surface. So and then there are forces. Let's read that question number 18. But as far as Her Majesty's word is concerned, we teach you science with the application. So now a 100 kg device is pulled up a plane inclined at 30 degrees to the horizontal with a force of 1000 Newton. If the coefficient of friction between the device and the surface is 0.25, determine the total force opposing the motion. Determine the total force opposing the motion. Total force or force opposing the motion is actually the component of gravity that is parallel to the inclined plane, and then the horizontal components, otherwise the frictional force, which is perpendicular to the inclined plane. These two forces sums up to be the total opposing force. In real sense, there should be four forces here. Even the normal force on the object itself on the surface is lining on, then the gravitational force, and then the force being applied to pull in the plane, and then finally the frictional force, which is opposing. Then the force for pulling up the mass in the inclined plane is being opposed by the friction. So it depends. So let's solve this. What matters is that we have the drawing here. Look at the diagram I've made to save time. You look at it very well for inclined planes with a coefficient of friction. So in this case, we have that their question is, this is the inclined plane and this is the horizontal. So the angle between the inclined plane and the horizontal is 30 degrees. And look at the force. Now look at the force that is parallel to gravity, which is gotten by mg sine theta, and then the opposing, the force, the horizontal component of force, otherwise the opposing force that is perpendicular to the inclined plane, is this frictional force, which is getting by mg cos theta. Remember our theta is 30 degrees. M is mass, g is acceleration, or what we call gravitational acceleration, or acceleration due to gravity, which is given in the question as 10 meter per second square. Remember, in some questions they might give it to you as 9.8, so follow strictly instructions how it was given to you. So the total force acting should be equal to the gravity, that's the gravitational component that is parallel to the inclined plane, and then the perpendicular, which is the frictional force. So we will add up these two and get it. In real sense, remember, according to second law of Newton's second law of motion, it says that the net force acting on an object is equal to the mass of that object times the acceleration due to gravity of that object, which is F equals ma. And this time around we are taking F equals mg, because this g is still acceleration due to gravity, or gravitational acceleration. So in that case, getting the marker, we will have the horizontal component, or the parallel component, sorry, or that's the vertical component, which is mg. The mass given in the question is actually 100 kg times the gravity, which is, you were told to take it as 10 sine 30. So we will press this in our calculator. It's obvious that sine 30 is half, 0.5. This is already established fact. So 100 times 10 is actually 1000 times 0.5. So the vertical component, or the gravity component that is parallel to the inclined plane, the total force opposition from that angle should be 500 Newton. Then coming to the perpendicular, or the horizontal component, we have that mg is still mass, although in real sense we need to find the the frictional force, which is equal to the total frictional force should be equal to mu by the reaction, or the mu by the normal, because this is the normal force, and this normal is also force, where here is the coefficient of friction. The u is the coefficient, that's the mu, the coefficient of friction. So to find the horizontal components, or the opposing force that is perpendicular to the inclined plane, we have to use coefficient of this times mass times gravity, then all by cos theta. So this implies that the coefficient is 0.25, which was given, so that, I hope it's clear there. The marker, it has been open, okay. So F here is equal to 0.25 times 100, which was the mass given, 10 times 10, which is still acceleration due to gravity, then cos 30. So cos 30, I have to press this to be very careful. It's obvious that 0.25 times 1 times 10 times 1000, that's 0.25 times 1000. We can do this with our calculator. It should be 250 cos 30. I guess it's there in the camera, okay? It's still obvious, yeah. So my job is now to get the cos 30 from the calculator department. We have that cos 30 is 0.866. So 250 times 0.8660. We now say times, actually 250. We have 216.5. So the horizontal component of the force is 216.506. So approximately, for us to get the total force, the total opposing force, we will sum the two. So the total opposing force is, according to the equation, the total force opposing the motion should be, I'll take it as a T total, should now be the vertical plus the horizontal components of, or the one parallel and the one perpendicular. So parallel is 500 Newton plus 216.5, which automatically gives 716.5 Newtons. So, and that is option C. So that's the correct answer to question number 18. Okay, then to tell you more, I've introduced this when I started the solving, that the inclination, this inclined plane, it has many applications. As you can see on the screen, it helps you to load and unload the goods inside something elevated. So in this case, where do you apply? From the calculation, the angle of inclination will have a lot to do to increase or decrease the opposing force. So the opposing force parallel to the gravity, that is the opposing force due to gravity, that is parallel to the inclined plane, that's the parallel opposing force, will automatically increase if you increase this angle because of sine. If this becomes 60, sine 60 is obvious more than sine 30. But if the corresponding increase in the angle of inclination will cause a decrease in the frictional force. So the application here is that if you want to incline this to loading goods, you don't increase this angle so much, because it will lead to more opposing force that will be required to pull it up. And somebody might ask on the question, what happened to the 1000 given? Because they said a 100 kg device is pulled up a plane inclined at 30 degrees to the horizontal with a force of 10 Newton, with a force of 1000 Newton. That 1000 is equivalent to that 10 times 10. That is equivalent to that 100 times 10, because that is still, that force equals MA. The normal force acting up here, the force pulling it up, is still MA, which is 100, that's the mass, times the acceleration due to gravity, that is that 1000. Do you understand that now? So we have used that. Then I'm advising that if you want to use the ramp you are building for application, because this is emergency easy work, any calculation, every science aspect have its application. So if you want to have an inclined plane to unload, you are advised to increase the angle to reduce the friction, because if you increase the angle, the frictional force will reduce. But if you increase the angle, the force that is parallel that is parallel to the inclined plane due to the gravity is going to be also increased, and you need more effort to pull it. It's just like elevating, making this stand more erect. See what I mean? If this stands more up this way, that is by increasing the angle. Find out that you apply more force pulling something up there, but something can fall down easily. So if you are unloading, the inclined plane should have a larger angle. But if you are using it to load, that's to take a goods inside, you should use at least 30 degrees or slightly larger, not bigger angles. Bigger angles will require more effort, just like making it without the inclined plane again. So let's continue the part of the video. If you have not subscribed so far, please subscribe. If you have subscribed, thank you. Keep on following us. I cannot do without you. I cannot measure the love I have for you. Without you, there will be no Sir Majesty Easy World. So let us together achieve one common goal. Keep enjoying the class. Much love as usual.
Then number 19. Two objects A and B accelerate from rest at different rates. B accelerates twice as much as A. Compared to A, B travels what? So we're going to relate this formula based on the fact that S is equal to, so let's erase this here first. So I'm going to relate this formula based on the fact that S is equal to ut plus half at squared. Eliminating this u here, we have that based on proportionality is directly proportional to half at squared. That's directly proportional to half of A, which is removing all these other things here, is directly proportional to A. So if B accelerates twice as much as A, B also travels twice as much as A. So the correct answer to this question should be 2 times as far. So the answer is A. So the next question is, the diagram above illustrates a hot metal suspended at the center of a closed uniform box. Thermometers E, F, G, and H are placed in contact with 4 sides of the box. Which of the following thermometers will register the highest temperature? The correct answer to this question should be G, due to the gravitational pull on the mercury, forcing the mercury to go down. So G will obviously record the highest temperature. So that's C. So the next question is, a liquid is left in an open dish. After several days, there is less liquid in the dish. Which of the following statements explains this observation? This is obviously the theory of evaporation. And based on evaporation, most energetic molecules leave the surface and escape into the air. So that's B. They never return. So the next question is, the colors of the visible light region of the electromagnetic spectrum that have the highest and shortest wavelength respectively are. So based on the arrangement of wavelength and speed, ROIC beef, we have that the one with the shortest wavelength, this is based on decreasing order of wavelength, and speed. So the shortest wavelength here is violet, while the longest one here is red. So the correct answer to this question is D. So the next question is, which of the following equations is not a correct mirror formula? The correct answer here is C, because these other formulas can be applied in a mirror, but this one only goes for length. So here we have 1 over f is equal to 1 over u plus 1 over v. F is the focal length, while u is the distance of the image from the mirror, and u is distance of the object to the mirror, while v is distance of the image to the mirror. So this formula applies for that of a mirror too. While n is the number of images formed by a mirror, theta is the angle of inclination between 2 or more mirrors, and you always subtract it from 1 to find the number of images that are formed by that particular mirror, depending on where you are inclined to that mirror. So we have magnification. So we have f is equal to 1 over d. F is our focal length, while d is diopters. That's the power of a lens. Apparently, there's nothing like the power of a mirror. So relating this formula to that of a mirror is not correct. So this is not a mirror formula. Then the last one is M is equal to V over U. This is the magnification of the mirror. That is that's the size of the image divided by the size of the object. So the magnification of the mirror is equal to V over U. That's the formula for the magnification. So the next question we're going to go into is an atom in an excited state is one whose electrons have moved to a higher energy level, because atoms that are excited move to a higher level energy level, while an atom that is at rest is one that does not move to a high that does not move to an energy level but is in its ground state, which means that is at rest. So the correct answer to this question is D. Then it said the conclusive test for magnetism in a steel bar suspended horizontally at its midpoint is when the bar always settles in the direction of the north-south direction. Remember that for test of a magnetic substance, we place that substance tied to a string in the midpoint, and if that substance actually moves in a horizontal position, you know that it's not a magnet. But if it starts moving vertically, like north-south direction, something like this, when it's tied to a string up, that means you know that it's a magnetic substance. So let's just clean this. So it said, so the next question is, which of following devices is used to compare the relative magnitude of charges on two given bodies? The answer is I not mark this one. This is A. Then say which of following devices is used to compare the relative magnitude of charges on two given bodies? The answer to this question is gold leaf electroscope, because the gold leaf electroscope is used to measure small charges that can be recorded, and the others cannot be used to measure charges. So to compare the relative magnitude of charges, we can use the electroscope to do that, because it measures the charges because it measures the charges of the two bodies. So he said a direct current cannot pass through a parallel plate capacitor because the dielectric between the plates is non-conducting, because the dielectric is an insulating material, as we saw at the beginning part of this question. So he said the process of producing electric current by a changing magnetic field is referred to as electromagnetic induction. Electromagnetic induction is just based on the principle of creating an electric current by magnetism, because remember that we can create a solenoid by passing electricity to create magnetism. But if we make the direction of the magnetism straight, the current will start moving in a spiral direction. So this is known as electromagnetic induction. It can be applied in several areas like the electric motors. So the next question is, the sagging of overhead electrical wires is caused by linear expansion, because linear expansion involves when a solid or a substance, mostly a metal, increases in size due to the presence of heat. So the next question I'm going to go to is, a cell of EMF 2 volts has an internal resistance of 0.5 ohms. A current of 0.4 amperes passes through an external resistor P. Determine the resistance of P. Remember that the formula relating to internal resistance is E is equal to I bracket R plus small r. The small r is the internal resistance, and our E here is the EMF. The EMF is 2 volts, and our I in this question is 0.4 amperes. The R resistance of P was not given, so I'm going to leave it as capital R, but the internal resistance was given as 0.5 ohms. So solving this question, we have 2 is equal to 0.4 multiply the things in the bracket, so that will be 0.4 R plus 0.4 multiplied by 0.5 give us 0.2. So this will be 2, then we carry 0.2 to the other side. 2 minus 0.2 will give us 0.4 R that will be 0.4r is equal to 2 minus 0.2 will give us 1.8. So dividing both sides by 0.4, so that will give us 4.5 ohms. So the next question is the property of a body that determines the direction of heat flow when the body is in contact with another body is the temperature. Sorry, let me mark this one. This is 4.5 ohms. The temperature, because when a hotter body is placed near a colder body, that colder body tends to become hotter, while the hotter body tends to become colder. And that property is known as the temperature of both of the bodies. So the next question is, an RLC series circuit at resonance, the voltages across the resistor and inductor are 30 volts and 40 volts respectively. Determine the voltage across the capacitor. What you should take note in this question is the resonance here, because resonance means like the highest frequency, and at resonance the voltage across the resistor and the capacitor are the same. That's, we can also say that the inductive reactance is equal to the capacitive reactance. So that of the inductor, which is 40 volts, it will also be the same as the voltage across the capacitor, so it will also be the same 40 volts here. So the next question here is, the purpose of commutators in a direct current motor is to reverse the direction of the current after every half rotation, because the commutators regularly switch brushes whenever they complete each half rotation. So that's the main use of the commutators in an electric motor. So the next question is, a lead bullet of mass 0.05 kg is fired with a speed of 200 meters per second into a lead block of mass 0.95 kg at rest. Given that a lead bullet moves after the impact, determine its kinetic energy. One thing I should take note is that based on Newton's law of conservation of energy, you should know that MAUA plus MBUB is equal to MAVA plus MBVB. So our U here, the mass of our bullet here is 0.05 kg, and the velocity traveled at 200 meters per second, plus the mass of our lead block is 0.95 kilogram. Obviously it was stationary, so it doesn't have any initial velocity. So it was just stationary before the bullet actually made an impact to move the block. So the mass of the lead bullet is still 0.05 multiplied by the new velocity is what we don't know. And since the lead bullet fired the block at a particular velocity, both the lead bullet and the block moved at the same velocity after the impact. So the same velocity applies for that of the lead block. The lead block still has the mass of 0.95, and the same velocity applies for it. So that will be 0.05 multiplied by 200. That will give us 10. So that's 10 plus 0.95 times 0 will give us 0. This will give us 0.05 volts plus 0.95. Sorry, 0.05 V plus 0.95 V. So that will be 10 is equal to 0.05 plus 0.95 will give us V. So our velocity now is 10 meters per second. So the next thing for us to find now is the total kinetic energy. So how do you determine the kinetic energy? So I'm going to find half ma va square plus half mb vb square. So let me just make space here. So let me just bring up the formula here. So So our MA, that's the mass of the bullet, was 0.05. The velocity is now 10 meter per second, while the mass of the lead block was 0.95. Even at the velocity is still the same 10 square. So that will be half times 0.05 times 100 plus half times 0.95 times 100. So this will cancel this. So that will be 50 times 0.05 plus 0.95 times 50. So let's solve for that. Now be 2.5 plus, let's do 0.95 times 50. So that would be 47.5. So after adding both of them together, that gave us 50 joules. So correct answer to this question is A. Then the next question is, what's the name given to the force between the nucleons in the nucleus of an atom?
The correct answer to this question is nuclear force, option B. This is the force holding the protons and the neutrons in the nucleus. Only protons are charged, neutrons don't have charge. But electrostatic force is the force of attraction or repulsion between charged particles. The two particles must be charged, like the force holding electron and proton is electrostatic.
So let's move on to the next question. So the next question says, in a controlled thermal fission reactor, the use of control rods do not affect the...
The correct answer to question 36 is option A. Control rods are not neutron moderators. The neutron moderators helps to slow down neutrons produced by the fission to sustain the chain reaction, while control rods are actually used to control the rate of the reaction inside the reactor. So control rods, mainly the hafnium, other metals, boron, they used to control the rates of the nuclear reaction inside the reactor, but the speed of the neutrons are controlled by the neutron moderators, which are commonly the heavy water, that's the D2O and the graphite. So the correct answer is A. Control rods does other options except option A. Thank you.
So the next question is, the most appropriate value for of fuse for a kettle rated 220 volts 1.06 kilowatts is... Please don't mind what was marked in this question paper. Just mind what we're solving here, because some of the things here are not... Just don't mind them. They're not... Most of them are not correct. Just mind the solving. So we're going to solve for the current here. So I'm going to find the form. So I'm going to use the formula for the current. Remember, the formula for power is P is equal to IV. So our P here is 1.06 kilowatts. I'm going to convert this kilowatts to watts. So that will multiply by 1,000. That will be 1,060 watts. So that will be 1,060 is equal to, our I is what? We don't know. Multiply by 220. Divide both sides by 220 volts. So that will be 1,060 divided by 220. That will be 4.8 amperes. And obviously, that will be 4.8 amperes. Obviously, the fuse needed will need to... the fuse needed will actually need to contain more current, just for safety reasons. So the closest answer, we need a fuse of at least 5 amperes for this kind of kettle. So the correct answer to this question is C, 5A. The type of mirror used by dentists to infect the teeth of patients is concave mirror. Concave mirror magnifies image. Convex mirror is used in car lenses. That's to give a smaller image of objects behind you. We cannot obviously use the plane mirror. Plane mirror give the same size. The same size will mean that the size of the teeth will remain the same. And what dentist needs is a clearer image of the teeth so I can see the problem there. So the diagram below illustrates the mode of vibration of wire of length 125 centimeter. Speed of waves along the wire is 120 meter per second. Use the diagram to answer the questions 39 and 40. Determine the wavelength of the wave. So first of all, we already know the total length of this wire is 125 centimeter. So I need to count the number of wavelengths here. So number of wavelengths here is what? That I need to count here. So that will be, counting here, that will be 1. So this one here is 1, 2, then half. So this will be 2.5 wavelengths that were here. So if we leave 2.5 wavelengths to make up 125, that means the value of one wavelength will be 125 divided by 2.5, that's 2.5. So that's how I need to solve here. So that will be 50. What? That will be 50. Sorry, this 125 was, so that will be 50 centimeter. So I need to convert 50 centimeter to meter. So that will be 50 divided by 100. So that will be 0.5 meters. So the correct answer to this question is B. So the next question is determine the frequency of the waves. So in this, as you see in this question, the frequency is given as you all know in this question, in any question, the frequency is given as speed over wavelength. So the frequency, how I need to find it is I need to do the speed divided by the number of wavelengths. Sorry, not the number of wavelengths, but the actual value of the wavelengths here. So the speed we were given here was 120, divided by the wavelength that we got was 0.5. So 120 divided by 0.5 will give us 240 hertz. So the correct answer to this question is C. So the next question here is, which of the following statements about the properties of the electrical field produced by charged parallel plates is not correct? Okay. The electrical field in the region outside the parallel plate is 0, except for the edge effects. That's correct. The electrical field is uniform everywhere in the space between the parallel plates. Yes, because you all know that the capacitor is used to store electricity. So the electricity is always even anywhere in the capacitor. So the magnitude of the electric field strength at any point between the plate, except near the edges, depends on the magnitude of the charge on each place. This is wrong because at any point it doesn't really have any limit. So even near the edges also depends on the magnitude of the charge on each place. So the answer to this question is C. So the next question is, a car P with a velocity 30 meters per second, so that's velocity 30 meters per second, is traveling in the same direction as a car Q with velocity 20 meters per second. The velocity of P relative to Q is what? P is moving at a higher speed than Q, but somebody inside Q now, seeing someone inside P, will actually feel a relative velocity of 30 minus 20, that's 10 meters per second, because he's already traveling at a high velocity of 20 meters per second. So the relative velocity will subtract both of the velocities together and they are moving the same direction. This is called vector addition. So this will give us 10 meters per second. So the velocity of P relative to Q is 10 meters per second. So the next question is, the range of wavelengths of the infrared waves in an electromagnetic spectrum is 10 raised to power minus 3 meter to 10 raised to power minus 6 meter. The wavelength of the radiation is, so the correct answer is, according to the range they gave us, it should be shorter than 10 raised to power minus 6 meter. So that's the correct answer. Then said, when an electron jumps directly from an orbit of n equals to 4 to n is equal to 2, a photon is usually emitted because it's jumping to a lower energy level. If it was a higher energy level, the photon would be absorbed. Something like this. where this is, okay, so this will be n equals 1, n equals 2, n equals 3, n equals 4. So when it's usually jumping from 4 to 2, the electron, a photon is usually emitted. Not 2 photons, but a photon is emitted. So let's move on to the next question. So the next question is, when a lightweight body and a massive body are acted upon by the same force for the same period of time, the momentum of both bodies remain the same. Don't be confused saying that the massive body will have a higher momentum because it's more massive. No, because, and you now feel like the velocity, even though the velocity was not given, it still has a higher mass. No, you have to understand the question first. We all know that Ft, according to Newton's second law of motion, Ft is equal to mv minus mu. So the change in momentum is to the momentum of each of the body is equal, is the same thing as force times time. And both bodies were acted upon by the same force for the same period of time. So whether one was 1 kilogram and the other was about 1,000,000 kilograms, both of them still had the same momentum due to the fact that they acted upon by the same force and the same time, at the same time. So the correct answer to this question is A. Which of these devices is associated with alternating currents only? Is a step-up transformer, because step-up transformer is used for increasing, the step-up or step-down transformer is used for increasing or decreasing the values of alternating currents only. That's the ones that we use in our households to generate electricity. So the next question we're going to look at is, a body starts with an initial velocity of 20 meters per second and moves with a uniform acceleration a for 15 seconds. Which of the equation represents the distance s traveled? So what I need to do, I need to use s is equal to ut plus half at squared. S is equal to ut plus half at squared, where our u is given as 20 meters per second. Our a is given as, okay, we're not giving a here, we're just giving that it's 2a, and our t here is given as 15 seconds. So I need to apply it in this formula. So our s here is given as 20, okay, our u here was 20, that's 20t plus half times a times, so our a is, our t is 15, so that's 15 square. So that's our s is equal to 20t plus 225a over 2. So, okay, the t here, we're going to multiply them together. So we're going to do this 20 multiplied by this 15. So our s is equal to 300 plus 225a divided by 2. So our correct answer here is C. So the ratio of maximum range to maximum height of a projectile is 4. That means the range of the projection. So that will be u square sine square theta over g. We don't really need the sine square theta because it will obviously give us 1 when we're either referring to maximum height and maximum range. So this will be, so for the range it will be u square over g, while for the height it will be u square over 2g. So the said ratio is 4. So that will be u square over g divided by u square over 2g is equal to 4 over 1. So I need to switch the fraction. I need to turn over the fractions. That will be u square over g times 2g over u square where u square will cancel u square here, and g will cancel g here. So we have our, this will be, since this is range, u square sine 2 theta over g. Let me just raise this. Our range is u square sine 2 theta over g, while that of our height is u square sine square theta over 2g. So to find the ratio of the maximum range to the maximum height, that will be u square sine 2 theta over g divided by u square sine square theta over 2g. So we're going to switch both sides of the equation together. We're going to turn over this fraction because it's division. So that will be u square 2g over u square sine square theta is equal to 4 over 1. So this u square will cancel this u square, this g will cancel this g. So that will be 2 sine 2 theta is equal to sine square theta, which is equal to 4 over 1. Cross multiplying, that will be 2 sine 2 theta is equal to 4 sine square theta. So the only angle that satisfies this equation is 0 degrees. So the correct answer to this question is A, 0 degrees. So next question is, the following statements are observations made about a towing vehicle and the bus that is being towed. The force exerted on the bus by the towing vehicle is of the same magnitude as the force that the bus exerts on the road. The force exerted on the bus by a towing vehicle is of the same magnitude as the force exerted on the towing vehicle by the bus. The towing vehicle exerts a force on the bus greater than the force exerted by a bus on the towing vehicle. The towing vehicle exerts a force on the bus is the same. The towing vehicle exerts a force on the bus that is the same as the force the road exerts on the towing vehicle. According to this question, only II is correct because the force exerted on the bus by the towing vehicle is of the same magnitude as the force exerted on the towing vehicle by the bus. That's for a corresponding force to move forward. There's always a reaction. There's always an equal reaction that is ready to take it back. Even anything we do, both when you are walking, a corresponding frictional force that is opposing the motion. So the correct answer to this question is II only. The other ones don't seem to be correct. This is not greater than. So obviously, whatever the force exerts on the road is not going to be equal to what the towing vehicle is exerting on the bus. It's not the same thing. So the last question here is, determine the distance between x and y. The diagram above illustrates a velocity time graph. Determine the distance between x and y. So whenever we look at a graph and we find out that it means the multiplication of both the x and y axis, because we obviously know that distance is equal to velocity times time. So relating to this question, to understand that this shape made here by x and y is a rectangle. So to find the distance here, we're going to find the area. Just like when we're doing velocity divided by time, that's slope. So to do velocity multiplied by time here, we have to do area. So the area of a rectangle is given as base times height, and our base here is the distance from here to here, that's 8 minus 4, that's 4, while our height is from here to here, that's 14. So the area of this shape here is given as 4 times 14, so that's 160 meters. So the final answer here is 160 meters. Alright, that's all for today. Thanks for watching.